Welcome into Schoett and Vipp, a podcast brought to you by Inside Carolina this college football season. I'm Taylor Vippolis. He's Jeff Schoettmer. We are both Carolina football lettermen, breaking it down game by game. Before we get started today, Schoett, I have to remind people we've moved our website to the On3 network. We're all part of the new site where it's the same staff, the same standard, just a new home with On3. You'll need to create a new account and get a new subscription. You can join now for just $1. Go to InsideCarolina.com to learn more. Schoett, a lot of people are saying this is the hottest team in college football because North Carolina wins at home against Stanford, against Frank Wright. They win 20-15. Where if you told people in 2018, hey, you'd be watching Frank Wright and Bill Belichick coaching college football, not too many people would have believed you. Not too many people would have believed you if you mentioned that the two teams would be Stanford and North Carolina. What were your opening thoughts from this game?
And also to add to that, playing on the CW network. Like, too funny. But, look, we are playing a new brand of football in North Carolina. We have rebranded as the North Carolina Hawkeyes. This is a style of football we haven't seen before, but honestly, it's a style of football that we kind of talked about in the offseason when Bill got hired and kind of preseason of how we thought this season would go and how the game flow would go. And, from the beginning of the season, I thought our defense was going to be stout, or more further along than our offense, and we were going to play very sound special teams and win in an ugly fashion. And our defense is absolutely outplaying the offense, and they have been for weeks now. And that hasn't happened in a long time consistently at North Carolina. For the past 13 years, it has been very true that our offense has been more productive and better than our defense. So I guess it is a refreshing feeling to watch our defense outperform our offense. And, we'd love to have a Sam Howell or a Drake May or a Mitch Trubisky or a Marquise Williams or a Bryn Renner at the helm at quarterback. But, we are surviving with what we have at that position. It's not a quick fix. We're not going to fix it this season. That's a move for the offseason. But, the defense set the tone for this game. Opening drive, we get a big sack. I think maybe 2 sacks in the first drive. In my opinion, the final score wasn't an indication of the game. I think those last 2 touchdowns by Stanford were, not fluky by any means. We weren't playing the same defense. We were not pressuring as much. We were kind of backing off, trying to bleed the clock. Like Bill Belichick has been known for just trying to win the game. I don't think Bill Belichick cares about covering and that kind of nonsense. We did what we had to do at the end of the game to win it. So in my opinion, the final score was an indication of I thought we played better than them. But yeah, overall thoughts, we are rebranded as the North Carolina Hawkeyes. And in my opinion, as a defensive guy, it's a little bit refreshing to see because it's something we're not used to. And anytime, there's change in your life, you're always kind of wondering what's going on. But once you get used to it, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, I like the North Carolina Hawkeyes moniker for this team because it does feel like North Carolina has to drag teams into the mud to win. As a defensive guy, I'm curious of your preference. Would you rather watch great defense and bad offense or bad defense and great offense?
I mean, as a fan, if I'm just watching 2 teams that I don't have any connection to, if it's a random college football game, like Pac-12 after dark or something like that, I want to see a lot of points. But if I'm invested, especially North Carolina, like I'm excited to see the defense play well. So I guess it depends on who's playing. If I'm invested in the game, I want to see good defense. If it's 2 random teams I don't care about, I want to see a high scoring game.
Yeah, because I think when I'm watching this game and I have like this offensive mindset, and putting more context into when this game kind of fell into the schedule, Friday night, you have Kansas, North Carolina basketball. North Carolina basketball looks like they're trending in the right direction. Unfortunately, Seth Trimble gets hurt in practice and it's going to be out for an extended period of time. But what you saw from Caleb Wilson on Friday was like, wow, North Carolina basketball, this is going to be a fun season for this team. And then you fast forward to Saturday, and that that first half was tough to get through. It's 3-3. Neither team is really doing anything. Luckily, North Carolina was able to open it up in the second half, and I think that's kind of where the confusion comes from in this team, because on paper they do have a good amount of standouts, especially on defense. The defense right now, if anybody's complaining about anything that the defense is doing, misguided.
Yep, agreed there.
Put those complaints somewhere else, because this defense is winning games for North Carolina, to where when it was 3-3 and North Carolina scored to go up 7, right there felt like, okay, game over. North Carolina's defense is going to do enough to carry them. And then it does feel like they have pieces on offense here and there. It feels like it's a different guy in the running back room almost every time. We've talked about Kobe Paysar. We've talked about Jordan Shipp. So there's only so many times we could really talk about the quarterback position and how it's kind of handcuffing this North Carolina offense. And it's kind of a chicken or the egg situation with your quarterback and your offensive coordinator. Both things that I think need to be addressed in the offseason. But like you mentioned, this is kind of making do with what you have. And on the topic of standouts, there's a bunch of people I think you could pick for who's really stood out for this North Carolina team, but who kind of jumped off the page to you when you're watching them play Stanford?
The first guy I'll start with the offense, even though they weren't as exciting as the defense. The first guy I'll start with is Jordan Shipp. You know, I'll be honest, I didn't really know what we were going to get out of Jordan Shipp preseason, because we didn't see much of him last year. Obviously, he goes to ACC Media Days as a true sophomore. Like, he's got some pedigree from his high school career, and people, raved about his competitive nature. And but he brings toughness to our team. He brings consistency. That touchdown that he had, the 50-plus yarder in the fourth quarter to kind of break open the game, huge play. They're in cover 0. He just runs a quick hitch route, but makes the defender fall on the ground and takes the ball to the distance. So he routinely makes plays when we need him, and he seems to love the University of North Carolina, and I love guys like that. He's from North Carolina, and he gives it his all. I mean, he is not the most talented physical specimen on our team, but he is always in position to make plays. He blocks well. He's sure-handed, and so he's my first standout. And then another guy is Davion Goss. You look at his stats rushing. I mean, I think he had 11 rushes for 28 yards, but he made 2 plays. One getting a third down where he hurdled the defender, and then another one where he scored a touchdown in the red zone on a wheel route. His stats don't look overwhelming, but he made 2 huge plays in the game, one to extend a drive and one to obviously put points on the board when we can't score in the red zone normally. Like, we have a terrible red zone offense. So those are kind of my 2 standouts on offense. And then defense, despite I don't think any of these guys got like ACC player of the week, but the 3 that stood out to me, and I'm going to name this guy first, is Andrew Simpson. He did flash, he had 2 sacks, he had a forced fumble, 2 TFLs, a couple tackles, but he was always in the right position to me. And we utilized him a little bit differently than we have in prior games, where our defensive staff did a good job of exploiting the Stanford blocking schemes, in terms of he was rushing as an off-the-ball linebacker some, but they knew the protection, and he would get paired up against the running back, and then he was beating him and either sacking the quarterback, forcing the fumble, or creating havoc and getting pressure in the quarterback's face, so they weren't able to get the throw game started in the first 3 quarters. Obviously, they threw the ball a little bit better in the fourth, but Andrew Simpson was all over the field. And then the 2 edge guys, Melkart and Thompson, each with 3 sacks. It's hard to go unnoticed, but those 3 guys really played a hell of a game. Simpson's been a very consistent performer all year, and then obviously Melkart and Thompson over the last 5-6 games have really taken off. Melkart's up there in the country for most sacks, and Thompson is right behind him, playing very limited snaps. I mean, if you were to look at Thompson's the percentage of plays on the field versus sacks, like it's got to be up there with most in the country. Because I mean, in the beginning of the season, he wasn't playing a ton of snaps, and he'll play 20 to 30 snaps a game and get 3 sacks like that. That ratio is unheard of. So those are my 3 standouts. I mean, pretty obvious when you're watching the game. House had a good game with an interception, and he did some things on the edge, and he's come along. But Melkart, Thompson, and Simpson are my 3 players of the game on defense.
Yeah, starting with offense, I think if you're North Carolina, priority one in the transfer portal has to be go out, get a quarterback that you can compete with, because you're looking at the landscape of the ACC. Florida State down, Clemson down, and you're looking at the standings and you're like, man, if Carolina had a quarterback that was even like halfway decent, they're probably in the conversation right now for getting to Charlotte at the very least. But 3 conference losses out of that picture already. But priority 2 has to be keeping Jordan Shipp. Jordan Shipp is going to get looks from other schools because of the performances he's had at North Carolina, and he's a Providence Day kid. He's a Charlotte kid. So you're really hoping that kind of keeps him in Chapel Hill and keeps him on this North Carolina team, because it's when you watch him play, it's like it's hard to believe that he's just a sophomore, because he feels like he plays so much older and he carries himself so much better than somebody this is really his first big breakout this season. And you hit on it where nothing, like if he goes to a combine, there isn't going to be one number that he puts up in a combine that blows people away, that drops people's jaw. And probably one of the reasons why he does get overlooked in his high school recruiting when he goes to camps and whatnot. But he's been a kid that the first time I saw him on a football field, I've told everybody I know, because I was at Providence, and I was like, this kid is a lot better than whatever the rankings are saying he is. I think he was like the 60th best receiver. And I called Phil Longo at the time when he was off the offensive coordinator for North Carolina, and Jordan Shipp didn't have an offer. And I said, hey, if people think there's 60 better receivers than this kid, they really don't know what they're talking about. And then on the defensive side, it's just like unbelievable the production that Carolina has gotten from some of the transfers that they've gotten, like Melkart Abou-Jaoude. When you get him from Delaware, I don't know in anybody's best case scenario if he gets double-digit sacks this season. And a lot of it was they bring in Yates from UConn, and I think a lot of people thought he would be the guy. He's forced to medically retire. But again, for what North Carolina was working with in the transfer portal and a shorter transfer portal window from the time that Belichick got hired, Kamari House leads the team in tackles, 13 tackles against Stanford. Andrew Simpson from Boise State, you mentioned, 6 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss. Abou-Jaoude from Delaware, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss. You're looking at this team, and they brought in a lot of numbers from the transfer portal, but for the most part, their defense has been hitting, and the coaching for the defense has been hitting. But I'm looking at Pro Football Focus grades again with the transfers. CJ Mims was the second highest graded player on the defense, nose tackle from ECU. Isaiah Johnson, nose tackle, was the highest graded player on the defense, 80.5. Gavin Gibson, 73.1, the strong safety that they also got in the transfer portal. Schott, when you're looking at this defense as a whole, are you surprised? Because I don't think anybody really thought that the individual parts were that great, but when they're playing together, like the sums of the part are far exceeding expectations, it feels like.
Absolutely. When I was doing my preseason analysis on the D line, I said, it's going to be sacks by committee. there's not going to be a guy that we're going to have double-digit sacks. Boy, was I wrong. I didn't know about Melkart. I didn't know about his upside. I said it's going to be multiple guys with 4, 5, 6 sacks throughout the year to kind of carry our defensive line, but two guys have really stuck out, and I credit that to, one, the players developing, and two, trusting the coaching, and then just buying into the process. They didn't start the season looking like this at all. They have truly gotten better over the last 5, 6 games. And, maybe it was the couple bye weeks of practice where we're really practicing hard and developing our guys and going good on good and having physical practices, because the development from the defensive side of the ball is very evident amongst all the positions. Our linebackers have gotten better. They've been the most steady the whole year, but our D-line has really shown up. And then the thing to me is our cornerbacks, even with
Dixon out,
they've stepped up, and in my opinion, they played better with Dixon out than they did with Dixon in the game. And I know Dixon's a really good player, but our defense has really set the tempo and the tone for our team as a whole these last couple of weeks. And they're coming up with big time stops and takeaways to help our offense out. Like in the second drive, Simpson gets a forced fumble, and our offense gets the ball on the. Obviously there was a penalty after the play, but in plus territory, and all they can do is a field goal out of it. But our defense is putting our offense in favorable positions to help them out because they are not very explosive. We had a big stop after Gio had a terrible turnover. We can talk about that later, about how he cannot turn the ball over, especially with the lack of explosive plays that he provides for our team. If you're not going to be explosive on offense, you at least got to have 100% ball security and really take care of the ball. We did a good job of holding Stanford to a field goal right before the half when they were leaking some yards. And then another stop we had that was big was on one of Stanford's drives in the third quarter. They opened up the drive with a explosive run. I think the only explosive rush of the day for 20 plus yards, and we bowed our neck the next set of first downs and held them to a punt. So we are playing timely defense. We're creating sacks on big third downs, and it's really putting our team in favorable spots where we're able to win ugly. And we have 10 points the majority of the game, obviously 3 at halftime, and we're able to win semi comfortably, going away. So I want to give them a ton of credit. They've really stepped up and looked like a top 50 defense in the country, and there's room for growth. We got guys that are going to come back. There'll probably be some transfers, but we are actively developing depth on our team defensively. And, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the guys that have a chance to leave stay, because they feel like they are getting developed and they are kind of buying into the process of what Belichick is coaching.
I think the most positive sign for the defense and the most encouraging sign for the defense is Stanford makes a quarterback switch before this game, and the normal Carolina football fan reaction is, "Oh no, we know exactly how this story goes." Yeah. New quarterback comes in, new quarterback looks like a Heisman, new quarterback plays another game against another team, and they never have that same level of success ever again. But going into this game, when Stanford makes the quarterback switch, we were kind of two of the people who were like, no. Like Bill Belichick is praying that you make a quarterback switch. Bill Belichick is hoping you put somebody less experienced back there, somebody who hasn't gotten the reps, hasn't gotten the live game reps. And if you put somebody back there like that, they're going to have no chance against this Carolina defense.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, take it back to the Cal game. That freshman quarterback that Cal had everyone was talking highly of him, and I thought we played very well against him. And then Chandler Morris from UVA, he didn't have a great game versus us. And then obviously the Syracuse kid was a true freshman walk-on that we made look like a true freshman walk-on. And this Stanford guy, I mean, you look at his numbers, he threw for 289 or something like that. But again, most of that's in garbage time when the game's out of hand and we're playing prevent zone defense and trying to bleed the clock. So those numbers aren't as advertised of how how disruptive we were in the game. So, all in all, we care about the final score, and it was a good conference win at home.
Quick break so I can remind everybody about our friends at Johnny T-Shirt. If you're going to be in Chapel Hill, you could visit them on Franklin Street. And if not, no worries. You could go online to johnnytshirt.com. They have everything that the Carolina fan could possibly want: the hats, the T-shirts, the jerseys, you name it, they've got it. Support the people that support us at Inside Carolina, and nobody supports us like Johnny T-Shirt. Great people, great customer service. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. Shot the Carolina offense. The Carolina defense is very fun to talk about because of how well they're playing. You wish the offense was playing to that level. If the offense was playing to that level, Carolina's probably a top 15, top 20 team in the country. But this offense is still an offense that's been a couple of plays away from really breaking some games open or flipping some of the losses to wins. So when you're looking at this offense and you're evaluating it, how do you kind of juggle the position of, yes, it feels like you're pulling it feels like you're pulling teeth sometimes watching them, but then they come out of the half in the second half and they're moving the ball a lot more effectively, and it's like, wait, what was going on in that first half where it did look so difficult?
Here's my opinion kind of on the whole thing is I would much rather see in Belichick's first year the offense be not explosive and be the big question mark on the team, and have our defense get better and produce and look like a sophisticated bunch. Just because the culture that you want to establish as a head coach, especially who our head coach is, he's known for defense and special teams. So for us to see our defense and special teams, get better as the season goes on, that's a big plus. I think we were kind of doomed from the start with our decision to hire who we did as OC and start who we did at quarterback. So, I think, again, like I said, I think those are fixable issues with hiring and signing the correct guys to be ACC championship contender caliber players. So that's kind of what I think about the defense and the offense, separated. But again, the first thing that stuck out to me in this offensive game was the amount of penalties, specifically from the offensive line. I think they had 6 penalties as a bunch. I know we're playing some new guys and some guys are banged up, but false starts and holding calls, just our offense cannot play behind the sticks. When we get off schedule, we really struggle to move the ball and get first downs as an offense. So, that was the most telling thing for me. Gio with a turnover that I thought was a big play in the game at the time. Obviously, our defense bowed their neck, and Stanford ended up missing a field goal on that drive. But our red zone woes continue. Our third down woes continue. So, it's hard to be a good team when you have a bunch of penalties on the offensive line. You can't score when you get the ball in the red zone, or you can't score touchdowns in the red zone. And then, when you get to 3rd and 2, you have a hard time gaining 2 yards to get the first down. So there's a lot of issues going on. And I think, again, we got to address those in the offseason. It's not a quick fix. We don't have the most creative offensive mind, leading the charge. So that's just, not a good mix when you don't have a ton of skill players and you don't have a ton of talent and you don't have a super creative offense. It's not a winning recipe. The thing with Gio, and I've talked about this in prior podcasts, is just his inconsistency as a player. He makes a couple throws and that you're like, okay, it looks like a legit ACC player, and then he follows it up with two drives, and you're just scratching your head. But he did do some good. He got into a nice little rhythm in the third quarter, and I thought our play calling did help him out, where he was playing shortstop. He was catch ball out, quick passes, get 5-6 yards. easy completions, and let's not try to do too much. He is not a good down the field thrower. We rarely complete balls over 10 to 15 yards, let alone 20, 30. So the best use of him going forward is those quick, ball to ear plays where he's catching it and he's throwing the ball under 1 second, quick hitters. And I think, our run game obviously wasn't there this game. Stanford did a good job. They were daring Gio to beat us with their arm, and they were going to sell out against the run. And they did a good job on their D line, and their linebackers were kind of flying to the football. So the run game wasn't really a factor, but good for our staff and Gio for turning it on in the third quarter and kind of opening up the game where we get a 2+ score lead. To put enough points on the board, they did what they had to do to win the game because they knew our defense was going to ultimately prevail.
Yeah, that quick passing game is, I think, the best way to hide Gio Lopez's weaknesses in this offense, because as you mentioned, some of the longer plays or the plays that take a bit to develop, you're watching him, and when you're watching the all 22, it's like you could see what he's thinking, but you're like, okay, this ball has to be out now. Mm-hmm. And he's still holding it. Sometimes he's hitching it, and it's like, hey man, this ball has to be out at a certain time. And it's like he's not trusting what he's seeing. He's not trusting the reads in the offense. He's not trusting his arm maybe, but there is a very clear disconnect sometimes when he does have to go downfield and that ball coming out a second or two late. And if you're even a second or two late trying to make some of these throws in these windows, he doesn't really have the arm talent to fit balls into some tight windows. And Stanford, I thought Stanford dropped a couple of early interception looks that should have been intercepted. And I meant to check out his turnover-worthy plays in this game. 2 turnover-worthy plays from this game. So I'm assuming one of those is the run that he did turn the ball over, mm-hmm. and then another one coming from a pass. But yeah, Carolina has 253 yards of offense in this game, 206 after halftime. So 47 yards of total offense in that first half. You mentioned it. They rushed for 1.85 yards per carry. When a team is stacking the box like that, is there anything you could do to even try to get the run game going? Because in the Syracuse game, you saw how good Damon June is. And then I think some North Carolina fans look at the box score and they see him finish for just 3 carries for 4 yards. And it's like, if this guy is truly one of your game breakers, if this guy is truly somebody who can carry you to a win on offense, is there any other ways to get these guys involved?
I think with our talent level right now, I think it was kind of a take what the defense gives you type of game. And we knew that our defense was playing well, so we were going to do everything in our power to not mess it up offensively. So I think that was kind of a game plan thing of, we did open it up a little bit more in the second half, and we started hitting on some of those quick hitter passes. But in my opinion, I just think they knew that they couldn't run the ball. They kind of abandoned the run in the third quarter and just went to what was working. So give them credit for feeding the hot hand and continuing with what works. But again, with a new offensive line combination, some banged up guys, the rushing game is a numbers game as well, especially if you don't have these superstar offensive linemen that could just create movement and just dislodge people. So they kind of just took what the defense gave them, and that's how they were going to approach it.
So you're looking at the schedule, and we'll get out of here on this. Carolina has 3 remaining games left: at Wake Forest, home against Duke, at NC State. They have to win 2 out of 3 to reach bowl eligibility. Schott, what are you thinking when you're seeing this 3-game stretch for North Carolina, a stretch that doesn't have them even leaving the state of North Carolina?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, I said we were going to win 3 out of 5. I still stand by that. And I did some digging into our schedule. And I would love to see, us win one of the two games at Duke or Wake. I do think we could potentially lose one of those games, and NC State lose both of their games. So we both go into the regular season finale at Carter Finley, both 5-6, and the winner goes to a bowl game. That would be some good television on Thanksgiving Saturday. So that's kind of what the prediction I'm going to go with is we split Duke and Wake, and we go into NC State 5-6, and we get a win at NC State in Bill's first taste of the rivalry. So that would be a fun way to end the season is get bowl eligible after a horrible start to the season and beat Dave Doran and the Wolfpack, Thanksgiving weekend at NC State.
I wouldn't even want to imagine being in Carter Finley that Saturday if bowl eligibility is on the line for both teams, just knowing how nasty it's going to get.
Yeah, I would love. I said this as a player. That was probably my favorite place to play. Other than like you played at some cool places, Notre Dame and that in Clemson and South Carolina. But playing at NC State was always a blast to me. Because their student section is right up next to the sideline, so they're all yelling at you when you come up the sideline. It is a good environment. They do support their team, or maybe not support their team. They more so cuss at the opposing team.
Hate the other team, yeah.
Yeah, then cheer their own team on. But it is a fun place to play, and they do show up, and they're rowdy. So, yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see us. I mean, obviously, I want us to win all the games. I'd rather us, secure bowl eligibility after Duke. But, I think we're going to be 5-6, and we're going to beat NC State to go 6-6 in last game of the season.
It's crazy that we're even at this point right now talking about bowl eligibility and if Carolina could get there after how bad some of those early games looked. That UCF game, if you would have told me Carolina had a chance to go bowling after the UCF game, I would have just assumed every other team on the schedule just forfeited. That's how bad it was at one point. But credit to this North Carolina team, credit to the North Carolina staff for starting to turn things around. See if they can continue that momentum this Saturday as they head to Winston-Salem to play Wake Forest. 4:30 p.m. kickoff. Shotman back on the CW.
CW's been good to us, right? 1-0 on CW. So I'll probably watch it muted this game. But look, my mom's a Demon Deacon. My brother went to Wake Forest, so this is a big bragging rights game in my family. My grandpa went to Wake. I was close to going to Wake, so I actually grew up a Demon Deac fan. More so basketball than football, but this is a big game in my household, so I'll be watching it with my mom, and hopefully I can, put a little wager on it, maybe dinner or something that night, and hopefully I can force my mom to buy me a pizza or something Saturday night.
I didn't realize it was a house divided game.
House divided game, baby. Yep. So.
But we will be back next week to break it all down. Shotman, appreciate the time as always, and appreciate everybody watching and listening.